Hi, everyone. It's Lori Brown from empowerednurses.org and yournurseattorney.com. And welcome back to our Hey Nurses, What's Next? How Nurses Became Business Owners and Successful Entrepreneurs, second edition. And so I'm excited today to have our special guest, Ann Conkley. Ann is a certified nurse midwife and a coach, and she's going to share with you how she became a successful business owner. So welcome, Ann.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so excited what our listeners are going to learn from you. And so I actually met Ann at the National Nurses in Business Association, and she gave a wonderful presentation, and I thought she would really serve you by hearing her story. So Ann, how is it that you became a business owner?
It's interesting. If you had asked me about 4 or 5 years ago, if this was, if this is where I would be, I would have said absolutely not. I would have never envisioned that this is where things would take me, to be very honest. So I started off in clinical practice, as an RN and L&D, and then I went to school, became a women's health nurse practitioner and a certified nurse midwife. I practiced as a CNM for 11 years and left my clinical practice last year. I got an MBA in the process. I served as a medical director of a clinic that we opened and built. And then along the way, I took this one class called Living the Good Life in my MBA program. And it was a class about entrepreneurship. And I was sitting, I'll never forget, just sitting in class and all of a sudden this light bulb moment of saying, oh, I don't have to be in a system that tells me, dictates when I work, how many hours I work, how many labs I have to, check off, how many patients I have to see, and whether or not, my value is linked to how many patients I churn in and out and how many babies I catch. And I just had that moment of thinking, oh, I could do something different. And I was in the midst of doing a coaching program, which I had encouraged my chair to fund and to support me to do. And so I all of a sudden thought I could create a coaching business. Like I could do this. And that's what I did. So that's how I got started. I just started plotting from there. And then very quickly submitted my resignation. I called my boss. I was like, I'm out. And then went from there and really began to build a business. So,
Just out of curiosity, did your MBA help you start your own business?
No.
That's that's what I find that these school programs, they're more theoretical and they don't really help you. I have a master's in nursing administration, and we had a lot of those type of classes, but it did not help me at all either.
Yeah, no, I think the foundation of it, I actually began in a master's of science in management specific to healthcare. I completed that 2-year program and I just wasn't satisfied. And I thought, gosh, I got to the last class and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do management. Like management is terrible. And so, it's not, but I was just sitting there thinking, this isn't what I had envisioned for myself. And, so I spoke to our dean, and our dean recommended, he said, why don't you do the 3rd year? You can apply all your credits to the MBA course. I thought, all right, maybe I'll give me something else to figure out. I had been stewing. I had gone through burnout and I was stewing on what is next? What's my next 2.0? So I thought, okay, fine. And so it was that one class. So my MBA program was worth it. My degree is worth it because it was the catalyst for this second phase. Whether the utility in it in terms of entrepreneurship, I don't know. Mine didn't have, I had one class on entrepreneurship and that's all I needed. But beyond that, I don't know if it was as useful as I thought it would be.
Yeah. So interesting. So what was the biggest obstacle you faced in starting your own business?
There were so many. I would say probably the biggest one was, it was really kind of assuming a new role in a way to midwife. And, I've been in healthcare for 15 years and I think my identity felt wrapped up in being clinical and, what I could do in the clinical role. And I really had some mindset work to do around trying to understand, what does it mean to, like, what are the skills that I had? What are the things that I'm naturally good at? One of the reasons I shifted so much was when I completed the Clifton Strengths Assessment, which is the backbone of the coaching work that I do now. And it gave me that sense of, okay, these are the strengths that I've always innately had. And this, in the field of, nursing and in midwifery, they apply really well. And what can I take out of there? And what is that next version? So that was really a struggle for me, because I felt like, I didn't have that community. That's why NNBA is so great. I've really enjoyed it, right? Because I feel like I'm in a community of zebras,
Yeah. Hmm. So is the Clifton Strengthsfinder, is it like Strengthsfinder?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Strengthsfinder is a relatively quick assessment. It's about $50 if you get the full, 34 plotted out in rank order strengths. And it's a great assessment. I think it provides a lot of clarity around how we show up in the world and how we lead. I lead with relationship building, which to me now, after having done it, I all of a sudden started to say, oh, I naturally got into leadership positions probably because of my ability to build relationships and rapport. And that's one of the reasons I was probably very effective at clinical practice and making good relationships with patients. But on the other side, my executing and my strategic kind of thinking is not as strong, and that's okay. And so I all of a sudden had this realization: I can stop trying to be the best at executing or the best at strategy, and I can come back into the realm of where I am naturally strong, which is in relationship building. And that's so much of what coaching is, in terms of building trust. And so it's funny. I mean, it's just one of those kind of aha moments, I think, for me, but it's such a great assessment.
Yeah, definitely. And those assessments are really good at helping you figure out, what's the right business for you, or where are my weaknesses and how can I fill them in? I mean, they're just, we use the Kolbe, Kolbe, in order to hire, because I want to have somebody close enough to me but far enough away with different skills. I'm really strong, like I'm an idea generator, but I don't always implement. So my staff is awesome at implementing, and they're the follow through.
Yeah.
But I'm strong on the relationships as well.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say my strength finder is a pioneer, because I'm a very much a pioneer in my field as a zebra, as you say, being a nurse attorney and helping nurses grow businesses.
Yeah, I don't think the moment that I realized where I could excel was the moment that I all of a sudden started to say, I don't need to do, I can delegate and hire. I can build a team knowing, just like you do with Colby, if I sit in this area and I'm really good here and I need, a person to do this and a person to do this, well, I can hire for that. I can build a team around me of support. And that was just such a revolutionary idea, after having worn so many hats as a nurse for so many years, as a nurse and charge nurse and midwife and medical director. And all of a sudden I thought, wow, I don't have to be all of those things. I can just assemble a team to help me get there, which is really good.
And you don't have to do it alone. And that's the beautiful thing about building a business. You don't have to do it alone. Unlike nursing, where you do feel, even though it's supposed to be team, and you still feel very much alone, that I'm responsible for these patients and I have to do everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the other elements that I really struggled with early on too was, in addition to some of that mindset work, was the importance of community. And looking back, I always loved being a part of a team, on labor and delivery, and I loved having a team in the office, and bringing in the cookie cakes and having the parties on night shift and all. I loved that. And then when I started in this business, I don't think I understood, that importance of community, and just knowing, I'm not alone. I'm going through this with other people. At the end of the day, I own the business. And at the end of the day, I'm not the only one who struggles with business things sometimes too.
Right, right. So tell us about your coaching business. Who are your clientele? What kinds of things do you work with?
So I create time, space, and tools for women and advanced practice nurses to cultivate freedom in their lives. And that's personal and professional freedom. So my struggle, some of the struggles that I've overcome personally, I coach women and advanced practice nurses on that as well. So going through burnout, coming to a decision point, having to face, do I exit clinical practice? Do I exit a relationship? Do I exit this career? I work with women often. The key is women and advanced practice nurses who are going through a transition. They're trying to consider, struggling with some decision making, stuck in indecision, and then try and figure out, okay, where do I go from here? And I work with them through a process. I do all of my business virtually, and I love it. It's a joy, to be honest, to be able to do this work. I love it.
Yeah, I know. I wake up every morning and feel so grateful that I get to impact, all the lives of the nurses that want to take themselves on and become entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's what do I get to create today? That's one of the beauties, I think, of just some of the work that I do now, right? The sky's the limit. We just had this conversation in my Facebook group called Side Hustles for Advanced Practice Nurses. And we just had this conversation, the sky's the limit. I mean, you are the owner, right? You have the opportunity to choose where do I spend my time? What can I create today? What programs, what services, what is solving a problem for somebody else that I struggled with, that I got through. That is so powerful to be able to understand. Oh, I can take whatever I've learned and I can do something with it. And on top of it, I may be able to create value and I may be able to monetize it. That's like the sweet spot,
Yeah,
So
and nurses are brilliant. They're wonderful at this.
Yeah, I would agree. I think nurses are the most inventive, because I think we've had to be for so many, years and in so many situations. You couldn't find the IV pole, so you came up with a contraption to hold the bag up, or you couldn't find the right, the butterfly needle or the right. I was just talking with one nurse about how I don't know, when I always remember putting IVs in and then sliding the catheter in and taking a piece of tape and doing a crisscross ribbon over it to anchor the essentially the bottom of the catheter. And someone came out with an invention for that, right? Like an actual little ribbon, and you could slide it on. And I was like, this is great. And I would imagine someone helped someone who was in the field and was like, wow, it's really annoying that I don't have a butterfly, a little hook, a ribbon to actually, anchor down the catheter. I mean, it's little things like that just, there's a nurse, we were just talking about a nurse in my group, a nurse from Cleveland Clinic who designed the surgeons in her operating room were getting really warm. They were doing, I think, a study to look at bringing up OR temps. And so she created a vest with ice packs in it, and then created a prototype with Cleveland Clinic. And then in addition, has now, created multiple vests and sells it. I mean,
Wow.
Yeah. So just from solving a problem, either for yourself or someone else. I mean, we're primed to do that because that's the work that we've always done.
Yeah, great. So what is the biggest fear you had to overcome in your business, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, there were a few. I mean, I'll be very honest.
They are for all of us.
Right. When I left my clinical practice, I am very privileged to be in a relationship of a dual, or my husband and I have always been in a dual earning relationship for our family. So when I left clinical practice, it was a significant change to our revenue and to our income. And so my husband and I made a deal. I've got 2 years, to build a business and to be growing and to be profitable. And that was a huge fear of mine. And interestingly, when I took Clifton Strengths, my top strength is that I'm an achiever. And I saw that and I was like, oh, I'll do this. I will build the business. I will build the business and I will not have debt and I will not be going back to clinical practice, because I have to, And
Yeah.
but there was some work I had to do around just, essentially how to do that and how to keep going day in and day out and how to continue, to implement continuous process improvement. Something doesn't work, you change it, you alter it, that was a really, so it was a kind of twofold. It was that fear of like, if this doesn't work, I'm going to have to figure something else out. So I better work like crazy to make sure that it works.
Yeah.
And then it was also kind of a little bit about, just that fear of failure and, what am I going to do if it doesn't work? And then I, quickly overcame that because I started to realize the majority of stuff may not work.
Right.
There may be small elements that work, and those are the ones that I take and I grow and I, and I tweak and I relaunch and I do. That was a big one. That was a huge learning hurdle, to be very honest.
Yeah. So I want to take two of the things that you said. The first is you gave yourself 2 years, but you didn't look at the 2 years as, if it doesn't work, I'll do this, as like a back door. You used it as, I'm committed no matter what, this 2 years isn't even going to come into play.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That was the fuel under the fire. Like, I have 2 years to make this work and I'm going to make it work because that's the only way forward.
Yeah. And then the second thing you said is that a lot of things that you implemented didn't work. And so I really want to bring that out to everybody, is that just because the vast majority of things that you try are not going to work, it does not mean that you're a failure at all. It just means you get to try something else. Like Thomas Edison, he tried to create the light bulb over 1,000 times. And when somebody said that you're a failure, you failed 1,000 times at creating a light bulb, he said, oh, I didn't fail. I just learned how not to create a light bulb.
Yeah, no, I'll never, when I had my first, about a year ago, I launched my first program and it was dismal. I literally, no emails, no phone calls, no direct messages, no hits, nothing. And I thought, like I'll never be able to do this, and I'll never forget. I went over to my mom and dad's. My mom and dad lived very close to us in Cleveland. And so I went over there for a cup of coffee the one morning and my dad was like, what's wrong? You look forlorn. And I said, well, I'm kind of upset. I had this program. I tried to launch it. I got literally no bites on it. And he was like, look, I'm going to tell you something. And I thought, oh Lord. And he said, if you don't get into this business thinking that you are going to fail 7 out of 10 times, you better go back to clinical work. Like, you better go back to the hospital. And I was like, my mouth must have hit the ground because I was like, like, and then I started, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, now if I have the expectation that maybe the majority of things won't stick and there'll be a couple that do, then I'm not so married to the idea that when one fails, that means I'm a failure. It just means I haven't yet found. It's that whole growth mindset. I haven't found the one that works yet,
Right. And it's all about either you tweak the messaging, you tweak the marketing, or you tweak your mindset. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of them. It's usually one of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, one or more. So so what advice would you have for nurses who'd like to start a business?
I think, very similar to what you said, which is that it's not, it's not the number of times, right, that you fail. It's the number of times that you keep going and figure out what works. And I think it's useful to have that fire under you to say, I have a goal. I'm going to make a business that's profitable and that's growing within, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, whatever it is. But I think, it's that mindset of saying, I'm here to do the work. I'm here to provide a service. if I commit to the fact that everything I do allows me to shine where I am strong in relationship building, and it allows me to create value for others by providing solutions based on my knowledge, training, expertise. I mean, you can't go wrong as long as you commit to that purpose-driven, very intentional way of being, right? So then when I fail, not if, when I fail, I'm not so tied to the result of it. I just say, well, this is part of the process. If I commit to doing purpose-driven work, my purpose-driven work is to create, to help women and nurses create freedom. If I commit to that work, then I've done the work, right? And I may fail in there. Maybe a program fails, but the reality is I'm still committed and I've still created the value and impact in the world that I wanted to create. So it's a lot of, I think, mindset work, but it's coming in with that very kind of powerful mindset of saying, not connected to anything. I'm here to provide the work. I'm here to learn. Failure will occur, and it's only going to help me get closer to where I want to be.
Yeah, exactly. Beautifully well said. And as nurses, we tend to think that, if we make a mistake in nursing, it's catastrophic. It could affect somebody's life. But in business, it's no big deal. It's like, okay, next, what if this didn't work? What can I try next? And that's just, we have to be as innovative as we were in nursing in our business as well.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point too, because I actually thank you for sharing that, because I don't know that I've thought about it in that way. If you come into this business and you have this sense of, if I screw it up, someone could be hurt or die, that's a lot of weight to carry on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And in healthcare, we ought to have it, right? We ought to have
Right.
that sort of level of, concern around the choices that we make and the actions we take. For business building, when it's not so, it's not so like life or death, I think there's more opportunity for us to say, okay, it's all right. It's just part of the process. It may work, it may not. Keep going. Next.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your genius with us. And how can our nurses and listeners find you if they'd like?
My best way is on my website, www.annconkleycnm.com. You can always find me on Instagram and Facebook, and happy to connect. Love connecting with other nurses. So.
Well, thank you. You have been, your information you shared has been so valuable. And I love doing these interviews because everybody starts their business a little differently. They all have a little different driver. Like you said, your drivers were different than other people. And, but so it just goes to show there's just not one way, and there's a million ways to start your business. But it's all about your commitment and your desire. And if you have the desire, if you dream it, you can achieve it.
Yeah, that was just my alarm went off as an affirmation of, right. I cultivate change, and my clients pay me to be authentic, right? Like all those little kind of things that go into it. So thank you so much for having me. It was so nice to share with you and just to learn from you. And thank you for that reframe around just how we go into, failure, and maybe why one of the reasons that we as nurses sometimes struggle with it, maybe more than others. So that was really powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, again, thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate it. And stay tuned for our next session. And bye for now. Thanks, Ann.
Bye-bye.